this may have been an error. It's gonna be fine. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and today I'm bringing you my top seafaring books. Yes, it's an odd topic, bear with me. The idea for this video came to me while I was writing my review for the Tide Child series. We'll come on to that in just a moment. And I realised I thought it would be pretty cool to go through all of my shelves and find my favourite books that are sea-based, coastal-based. I have a bit of a thing for the ocean. I think it comes from having grown up on the south coast and then for the last 7 years lived incredibly landlocked. There is no real big body of water near us. And that means that when a book has something sea-based or coastal in it, it just gets extra points from me. One thing I did realise after crafting this list, I literally went through every single book on my Goodreads. I have a lot fewer sea-based books than I thought I did, or a lot fewer great ones. So yes, I expanded the definition to include coastal-based things, but all of these books have a big connection to the sea. So here are my 7 picks. First up, I have the series that inspired this video. I have the Tide Child series by R.J. Barker. I'm going to hold up one of them. As much as I want to say, go and watch my review of these, that would make my life much easier, I will explain this for you because I care. This series, book 2 is just about to come out, follows the life of the crew of a ship called the Tide Child. The Tide Child is a bone ship, a ship made out of the bones of these sea dragons that have long been thought to be extinct. Unlike other bone ships in the fleet, Tide Child is crewed by the dead, or rather people who have been condemned to serve upon the ship until they die. The main character Joran is serving as shipwife or captain of the Tide Child until his power is usurped by the shipwife Lucky Knees. She proceeds to whip the crew and the ship and Joran back into shape, the reason being another sea dragon has been spotted far away and they need to hunt it down because it might just be the key to ending the seemingly endless war. While R.J. Barker confesses in the afterword to this book that he may have sacrificed some of the more accurate aspects of tall ship life for the sake of both plot and coolness, I do still think this book does a really good job of capturing the myriad moving parts that are involved at sea and on ship, and how much politics and human nature has a part to play in that. Since at least 80% of this entire series takes place on ships, in the sea, on the sea, on islands very near the sea, it definitely ticks the box. But on top of that, there's heaps of character development. There's fantastic world building, really capturing the symbiotic nature of the sea and these people. That's all I'm going to say in this video. I could talk about these books for a very long time. In fact, I have. You can go and watch my video if that's something you're interested in. Tipping in to YA fantasy, I have Erin A. Craig's House of Salt and Sorrows. This is a retelling, and not the only one on this list. This is a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses, which is one of my all-time favourite fairy tales. But the twist with this one is it's set in a haunted house. And this haunted house, well, mansion, is situated next to, you guessed it, the sea. As with the Tide Child series, one of the things that this book does really well is capturing how much the life of these coastal communities is tied to the sea and how the culture and life itself is impacted by that. The book opens with a burial, and the burial is intrinsically linked to the sea in a way that it wouldn't be for people on the mainland. I think it's really well done. I also think that the isolation of this community and the proximity of the very dangerous sea adds to the tension of this story, which is already pretty darn tense. I feel a bit cheeky for saying it, but I do also have a review video for this up on my channel if you wanted to go and watch it, I'm just saying. Having read this series this year, I thought it would be remiss to leave it off. This is Robin Hobb's Liveships trilogy, so we have Ship of Magic, The Mad Ship, and Ship of Destiny. While the following Rainwild series does take place on boats for quite a lot of it, this is the series that takes place mostly at sea. In this case, we follow various point of view characters who are all on various sea journeys focused around the live ships, or ships made out of wizard wood, which kind of come to life. It's hard to explain if you haven't read them. I honestly can't go into too much detail of the broader plot in these because honestly, where would I start? There's so many different plot threads. I love the way that the sea and the sea trade is intrinsically tied to the lives of these characters, and what I like about this series is you also get the perspective of characters who are at home, who are reliant on the income that these ships bring in, and how that affects their lives too. I am still not done with reading all of the Robin Hobb. I have quite a few books left to go, but I really did enjoy reading this trilogy. This is an ARC copy, but I do also have Frances Hardinge's Deeplight. I feel like it's not a surprise that this book made this list. Frances Hardinge has written on so many different topics in so many different settings that it's hard to find a list where you can't fit a Frances Hardinge book. Deeplight is one of my absolute favourites of hers, largely because of this ocean setting. We have this coastal community and this idea of these monster ocean gods who have since died, and it's this community dredging up parts of gods to use in their society. It's so gory and horrifying and still also very small town-esque. I don't know how else to describe it. It feels very much like Wrecking to me, which is something that I am very interested in. It also has a young male protagonist who does not suck. I mean, I'm in awe of that every time I pick this book up. It's so good. I recommend it hugely. I recommend all Frances Hardinge, but this is one of my favourites. Pivoting again to some YA fantasy romance, this is To Kill a Kingdom by Ali Christo. I've definitely talked about To Kill a Kingdom before. This is a Little Mermaid retelling. It's one of the other retellings on this list. There are more to come, but in this case we don't have a mermaid, we have a siren, and she's out to get the prince's heart in a much more literal sense. Things progress in a way that I would say is fairly familiar for YA fantasy. I think I can say that without completely spoiling it. This is, again, one of my favourite retellings. I feel, pardon the pun, it really floats my boat. I'll leave. I'll stop now. The Seafarer's Kiss by Julia Ember. Yes, it's mermaids again. It's a Little Mermaid retelling again, but this time it's bisexual. Yes, in this case we have a plus-size mermaid who falls in love with a Viking woman. This is an absolutely gorgeous novella. It's not very long, and while it's not perfect, there are some things that I think maybe could have been developed on a little further if it had a bit more time. It still makes me super happy. Unlike some of the other books on this list, this is more in the sea than on the sea. But it still counts because I make the rules. In case you were wondering, it is actually physically impossible for me to get through a video without recommending The Boneshard Daughter. I am a cliche at this point, but I promise this actually does have a connection. While a lot of the plot around the Emperor's daughter, Lynn, takes place not in the sea, the rest of everything is a set of floating islands. I don't know if there's a map. Yes. Islands. So we have a huge amount of plot involving Jovan the smuggler and his magical animal companion Mephi, more importantly, and that takes place on the sea around these islands. I firmly believe we're going to have more sea-based stuff in later books. I mean, the series is called The Drowning Empire. I don't know what else we're expecting. So yes, I'm justified in recommending this again, but also any excuse to recommend this again. So those are my 7 picks. While I have read other books that are on Under the Sea, those are the ones that I would actually recommend that you read. I've read quite a lot of not that great pirate fantasy in my time. I didn't want to include anything that I couldn't wholeheartedly recommend. So, what's missing from this list? What other sea-based books should I be reading? Let me know your recommendations in the comments below. As always, while you're down there, if you haven't already, you can follow me on all of my social media, which is linked below. You can subscribe, it makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. That's probably all I can say in this video, but I could talk about these books for a very long... As with the Tidechild series, one of the things that this series... This is book 3. I don't want book 3. While the following Rainwilds trilogy series, Judith, come on. Set of